Typhoon Fung-Wong's large impact field to reach the Philippines today. Typhoon Fung-Wong, Philippine name Uwan, entered the Philippine area of responsibility overnight and is now located at 12.8 north, 131.9 degrees east, moving west-northwestwards, a large typhoon and strengthening at this point, but still a Category 1 at this point. 85 mph winds and a pressure estimate of 966 millibars, with Signal 2 warnings now in effect for parts of the Philippines, and they're likely to be extended later on today. This is the latest as of 9 AM Philippine time this November 8th. Well, the storm is forecasted to intensify further and still expected to reach major typhoon status and probably Category 4 before striking the eastern coast of Luzon by the end of tomorrow or into the early hours of Monday. The wind field still quite large on that northern side, 175 miles, and increasing on the southern sides as well, which are catching up. In kilometers, it is 700 from San Policarpo on the island of Samar, 836 from Virac on Catanduanes, 885 from Legazpi City, 941 from Naga, and 1198 from the capital, Manila. Signal 2 warnings are now in effect for the northern part of Samar, including just the other two districts, the very northernmost parts of central and eastern Samar, and also for the island of Catanduanes. Signal 1 warnings extending across the whole of Luzon now and further south, as far south as Siargao del Norte. Well, Typhoon Fung-Wong is expected to deliver a wide-ranging impact from dangerous typhoon-force winds along the eastern coast of Luzon and the island of Catanduanes now, to large-scale torrential rainfall leading to flash flooding and landslides across virtually the entire northern half of the Philippines this weekend into early next week. The wind field is very large on this typhoon. Well, here's the forecast then over the next few days, and you may notice that the track forecast may have just shifted just a tiny bit southwards, definitely slowing down when it reaches the western coast of Luzon, emerging back out over water after its quite powerful landfall we expect, and weak steering currents or potentially the storm being dragged from possibly one direction or another means that the forecast later on in the period there is very uncertain. 85 mph winds right now with decent support. JMA estimates are slightly higher, JWC slightly lower but a little bit out of date with their update. ADT estimates though from satellites are still reading a little bit low, barely reaching typhoon equivalent force. NOAA ADT just about scraping 75 miles per hour. And it is a bit of an odd one in terms of satellite appearance. We don't often get storms that look like this, but we'll show you all that in a second. There's the signal warning map, and you can see just how extensive those warnings are here. Signal 1 from the Babuyan group of islands in the north, all the way down to the northern tip of Mindanao. Here's the forecast cone from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, who are forecasting a 115 knot Category 4 peak before making landfall not far from its peak intensity and then holding on to typhoon status on the other side. Here's the GFS forecast calling for typhoon conditions to reach Catanduanes and then move inland over northern Aurora and Isabela provinces, and then continuing northwestwards, holding on as a typhoon for a good while, almost reaching the coast of China before weakening really quickly by that point, not quite making landfall and dying off. A close-up of those winds, which will be reaching typhoon force in all of those yellow zones. The storm holding its composure and getting quite far north really for this time of year. Not many storms make it up towards the coast of China in November. There are, however, other scenarios where the storm could drift more westerly or it could go on to affect Taiwan. Here's the reflectivity showing just the western side in particular, I feel there, with the maximum amounts of rainfall. Certainly the mountains of Luzon will be taking in a lot of rain from this storm over the next few days, and we'll give you those totals in just a second, but look at the big rain profile there over a huge chunk of the central and northern Philippine Islands, most of the Signal 1 warning zone underneath a blanket of heavy rainfall as the storm pushes through. Quickly at first, so the islands towards the southeast will get less rainfall rainfall, and further towards the northwest you're likely to get more as the storm slows down a little bit. In terms of the actual rainfall expectations then, it is at the beginning to the south side of the storm that gets the maximum rain, then it's probably on the western side. In short, that means that Catanduanes and central Luzon will be getting the maximum amounts of rainfall up towards 350 millimeters of rain, and for Taiwan as well, a secondary high amount there up to 250 millimeters or more. For Mindoro, possibly 200 millimeters, and also for Samar and Leyte getting up towards the 200 millimeter mark as well. Manila getting up towards that same number. Sea surface temperatures still looking good. These graphics will read a little bit low, just a little bit of word of caution. So those temperatures are still around 29 to 30 degrees Celsius, maybe even pushing 31 in one or two spots as the storm approaches the coast. So sea surface temperatures, that energy amount field there, energy source, is certainly not going to be an issue for this typhoon, and it needs to not be because it is huge and will be sucking up a huge amount of heat energy. Well, here it is on the satellite imagery then as we get into the daylight hours of today, and the storm is starting to look a little bit better, trying to clear out the eye a little bit more after it was clouded out for a long time overnight by these massive overshooting cloud tops, really looking quite phenomenal as we look at this satellite imagery. You see three particular areas in this vortex that are swirling around the eye structure of this storm. The eye's trying to build underneath. I'm pretty sure there's still going to be gaps in it, and that's what's stopping this storm from intensifying more quickly, but I'm pretty sure it's heading towards Category 2 status at this point, and probably Category 3 maybe by the end of today. There's visible, this is water vapor, showing potentially that inner structure, little bits of the inner workings of the storm there. It's a big eye underneath there, and still open in at least one location. I would argue it's probably more than just the one. But look at those cloud tops, you can't argue with that. Extremely high cloud tops, those yellows on that graphic, and now the whites here on the Zara imagery. That's minus 90 degree cloud tops, and even higher on that main bulk on the south side, moving on towards the eastern side in those images, well into the minus 90s, really impressive. Radar returns from the Philippines, just one or two of the very peripheral bands reaching the region. Leyte and Samar getting a little bit of rainfall there this morning. And here's a wide shot of the whole region. The storm's influence really starting to make itself felt in the region. The moist air mass certainly reaching the Philippines by this point. Another viewpoint here as well, showing just how it's managing to get itself together. And that movement still towards the west-northwest. It's probably moving most in that direction right now. It may peel back towards the west just a little bit before it reaches the coast of Luzon after it passes Catanduanes. And one more view there showing that the storm is looking pretty impressive, and it just needs to clear out the eye a little bit more, get the structure sorted, and I think this storm may well rapidly intensify, but time is running out. It's only really got today and part of tomorrow. Well, elsewhere around the world, we've got two areas of interest in the Western Hemisphere. The Eastern Pacific at 10%, doesn't look like it's going to form anymore. The Atlantic, 20% now for the Southwest Caribbean. Keep watching that near Honduras. And out in the Southeast Indian Ocean, an area of interest as well. We've marked 20% on that as well. And of course, Typhoon Fung-Wong.